Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan, and I like movies, well, a lot. I run a media production company called Battle Ridge Entertainment for the last 5 years, and we've tackled everything from ads, short films, scripts, casting, and even a small feature. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the logistics of running a production company that we forget to just decompress and have fun. So this segment is really just to share our appreciation of movies with you, and to kind of shed some light on some films that you may have never heard of before. So please give us feedback. This is meant to be a constantly evolving segment, and we want to give you guys the best possible product. That being said, let me explain why Caddo Lake broke me.
This is my sister's. Tell me where you got this.
Caddo Lake is a mystery film that was released on Max back in September of last year. Although it had solid reviews, it flew under the radar for most people. Personally, I was excited for the film because it starred Dylan O'Brien, who's an underrated dramatic talent in his own right, but hasn't really found mainstream success since departing the Maze Runner franchise and MTV's Teen Wolf revival. Additionally, it was produced by M. Night Shyamalan, so at the very least, I was expecting a fun twist or two. But oh boy, my peanut-sized T-Rex brain was not ready. Now overall, I'll say this is a good film. The first act overstays its welcome a little bit to set up the stakes and develop the central two characters, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just important for those expecting a barn burner that, until the 45-minute mark, this is very much a slow burn. The general plot, without spoilers, is that a public service worker, Dylan O'Brien, and a young girl, Eliza Scanlon, are separately investigating family tragedies with seemingly no connection, although they both revolve around Caddo Lake. And this is a pretty accurate description for the first 45 minutes or so, and I actually found both investigation plots quite interesting, especially with the intimate grounded direction from Celine Held and Logan George. Dylan O'Brien's performance is pretty damn impressive. You get the sense that he's an everyday guy just trying to right a wrong in his life. Meanwhile, the entire world is urging him to move on. Anyone who's ever dealt with the loss of a family member can relate to his character and feel the performance he's showcasing here. The same can be said about Eliza Scanlon's character, which has an almost parallel conflict where her family is fighting for her to be present and be there for her younger sister. I bring these points up because the performances and characters in the first act are a huge piece of why the second and third slap so insanely hard. Now, the thing is, I can't really talk about the second and third acts without giving spoilers. If you're still watching, I hope you've seen this film and you're excited to dive back into it as much as I am. If you haven't, stop this video and go watch Caddo Lake. Trust me, it's really good. You have been warned. Anyways, Dylan O'Brien's character Paris has been investigating the medical cause of a seizure that led to his mother's death in a car accident. While working as a lake dredger one day, he miraculously finds the necklace his mother had on when she drowned in the lake. Meanwhile, his old girlfriend Steve shows up and we see that they still have some smoky tension. Shortly after, Paris tracks down an old pipeline during a dredging shift when he accidentally passes through some translucent energy barrier that causes him to experience tremors. He tries to bring C back to the same spot in the cypress forest the next day, but the old mill had seemingly disappeared. Meanwhile, Ellie, a troubled teen, is having a hard time building a family dynamic with her stepfather Daniel and her stepsister Anna. Ellie feels like her mother has given up on her father, who allegedly went missing when Ellie was an infant, so Ellie holds a sense of resentment towards Daniel and Anna. This eventually comes to a head when Ellie's mother reveals that Ellie's father had run off with another woman, and that she had confronted the woman after Ellie was born, but her father refused to speak to her. After this crushing realization, Ellie storms out of the house, leaving her family and concerned stepsister behind. The next day, we learn that Anna tried pursuing Ellie the previous night, but has now gone missing. With Anna's expected survival time decreasing by the hour, Ellie takes it upon herself to rescue her little sister. And well, this is when shit gets pretty cray-cray. So while searching for Anna one night, Ellie ends up stumbling across one of the energy barriers that Paris ran to earlier. And well, it's not a barrier, it's a fucking time portal. And at this point, we realize that Ellie's story arc takes place in 2022, and Paris has been investigating his mom's death in 2005. Oh, it gets better. So Paris ends up finding the time portal again in 2005 and accidentally stumbles into 1952, which is where he finds Anna's unconscious and wounded body. So he ends up dropping her off to the locals for medical attention, and then sprints back into the woods to avoid looking like a child predator. Definitely not the smartest character decision.
You're not fucking with me, right?
Anyways, while trying to find the portal back in 2005, he accidentally falls forward into 2022. Meanwhile, Ellie accidentally stumbles into 2005, where she has this really awkward run-in with C and her baby, putting up missing photos of Paris. Wait, what the fuck? And this is when the film hits us with our first big twist. Paris is Ellie's fucking dad! Mic drop. In this extremely awkward interaction, Ellie learns that the necklace belonged to Paris's mother, Anna Lang. So Ellie hauls ass to an internet cafe to do a search on Anna Lang to find yet another mic drop. When Paris dropped Anna off with the locals in 1952, she never made it back to 2005. So she was adopted in 1952 and just grew up in that time period, meeting the love of her life and having a son, that son being Paris. This provides a whole new context for the rest of the story too. So Paris's mother Anna kept experiencing seizures because she was in the wrong time period, and those seizures occurred every time Caddo Lake's water levels were low enough to provide access to these time portals. Back in 2022, Paris ended up entering the timeline right where Ellie left off, so he ended up stealing her boat to navigate the lake to find a way home. Unfortunately, the local authorities arrest him as being a potential suspect for Anna's disappearance after a high-speed boat pursuit. They bring Paris back to the local hospital where Paris watches the news, realizing his mother Anna was originally from his timeline and that he managed to save her. He also realizes that the lake's water levels are rising and he has to escape in order to pass through the 2005 portal before it floods out. So Paris ends up escaping from the hospital and stealing a car from a now grown-up C who he does not recognize, but she certainly remembers. The police pursue Paris to the local bridge, where he finds himself surrounded. In a last-ditch effort, Paris jumps off the bridge in order to swim to the portal before it closes, but ends up drowning in the process. Meanwhile, Ellie manages to make it back to Caddo Lake in 2022, where she's found by Daniel, and given the new knowledge of their familial bond, embraces him for the first time. In the emotional climax of the film, Ellie finally reunites with her mom, explaining that Anna will be okay and in fact had a full life, and that Paris had never abandoned them, but in fact died trying to make his way back home to sea. And then it ends, while leaving me years of emotional damage. But in all seriousness, this is a very good film that uses science fiction to tell a surprisingly touching drama about dealing with loss and never giving up on your loved ones. Has this type of story been told before? Absolutely, but not with the narrative Halloween costume of an M. Night Shyamalan movie. The only major problem I have with this film is how it handles Paris's ending. My man traveled across 3 different time periods to save his mom, only to be labeled a deadbeat father for 17 years. That's some bullshit. So if you haven't seen Caddo Lake, it's definitely worth your time. And if you like today's video, let us know in the comments. I'm doing this segment because I love movies, and I feel like this is a fun way to talk with our audience. If you have any suggestions for lesser known films you want to see me cover next, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.